So good day, good morning, good evening, everyone. My name is Laurent FIDE, and I'm the chairman of the FIDE PDC. It's a real pleasure to be with you today for this webinar, which is a kind of training for you. And I'm happy that many people from almost all time zones registered and are here to attend with us in order to understand how it will work with the funding in 2023. I will just give you an overview of the content for today. We will start with an introduction, of course, and then explain the concepts, the guidelines for funding. After that, Kema will show you about the new forms which will be used, and I will be back with a sample project to illustrate what will be important. In terms of introduction, I'm very happy that we have a great team, and we have a great supporter, a great supervisor with us, and she's present today. So I would be happy if Dana Reisnitze-Ozola could tell us a few words before we go into the details of this webinar.
Yes, thank you, Laurent. Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear representatives of the federations and our beneficiaries of the Development Fund, it is my pleasure really to greet you tonight, today, this morning, in different parts of the world, in the first orientational seminar by PDC this year. As you know, we do have a new leadership in the Commission. Laurent is now chairing the Commission, Kema is the secretary, and you see the whole list of the great people who are dedicated to work for the benefit of FIDE and you, our stakeholders. And we have started our new term a little bit later than we would be expecting or would be willing, but that's for a good reason, because I think we've done a good job reorienting our work. So first, the scope of the Commission will be not only to distribute the money and that forget about it, but we actually want to make the PDC as your great partner in your development, as the capacity building unit of FIDE. So we should be the ones who know you the best, what are your needs, what are your aspirations, what are your plans, and help you with advice, with the help, with also the funding part to achieve those goals, and do it in a consistent way, not jumping back and forth. So that is one thing. The other thing, we've been trying to revise our regulations, our documentation, so that it becomes simpler, so that it becomes more clear, so that it becomes more transparent and accountable. So you will be presented our new package of the documents that will be your working materials in this period. So where you would see the new guidelines, you would see that the KPIs have been revised. I believe now they are much more straightforward, much simpler. And one important thing is that we would not ask from you the information that we do have in our possession, but also you would see that the rules for accountability would be stricter, but in my opinion, more fair for the benefit of all of us. So I wish us the productive meeting today. I hope that you will learn a lot of new practical things. Ask your questions. It is in our interest that you understand everything that we want to convey to you. And this is, a very technical part of our great endeavor together with you in the development of federations, of our associate partners, affiliated partners, and FIDE in general, because we are as strong as you, each of our partners are. So this is my short introduction, and I am happy that we are here today, and you can trust us. We will be always there as your partners, as your assistants, and as your advisors.
Thank you very much, Dana, for this introduction. Dear participants, you can understand that development in chess does not know any barriers, because Dana is speaking from the middle of the night, and this is also a great mark of support. Thanks again. So about our team, we have 15 people in the team from all continents, and this is very important for the connection with the federations and various beneficiaries of the development fund. You can see on the picture that Danara is a bit bigger than the others, because the focus for today, of course, is funding. And for those of you who are used to apply already for funding, you know this fedfunding@fide.com address. And so Danara from the FIDE office is a great support for us in handling this address, and she is an important member of that process. So let's go to some concepts. Of course, I guess you are familiar with what we call the FIDE development levels. The map we have here on the screen shows in various colors where the federations of level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are located. And so this is also something which is important for us to understand. Where are the different needs for development? At the moment, the development levels, they are calculated based on the top 10 rated players of each federation. So this is purely chess FIDE rated oriented, but of course we have plans to make it evolve to be closer to the economical aspects and such considerations for the future. The FIDE Development Fund is usually quite a large amount of money. For 2022, it was 2 million euros. And we are trying to follow as much as possible how the fund is spent. So, as mentioned by Dana in her introduction, we are trying to grow in our understanding and our coverage in general. So, of course, the funding is directly under the umbrella of PDC. So, this is the top part of this graph. So this is approximately 700,000 euros for 2022, but we plus the commissions and affiliated organizations. But we have other ways to support federations and chess actors, like the FIDE aid package for opens, which is under the umbrella of GSC, for instance, as well as veterans support. Other programs which we are not yet able to track because we are building a piece of database step by step is the Chessable, but our objective is to have a better understanding in the future of the whole usage. And of course, when we focus on some organizations, it's interesting to have the full history of funding. So we wish to better understand the activity, the way that the federations were involved in development in previous years. So we are also starting something new with the new team about tracking funds which were used from the development fund. So this is the top part of this graph, year after year. So it means, for instance, not everybody has projects every year. We would be happy to have for each federation's projects every year, but it's not always possible. Of course, you know that in 2020, 2021, we had unfortunately the COVID period. So this did not help a lot. But yeah, when we look at this dashboard, we have direct requests. We can also understand when the federation got money through the continent, and also if they had opens or from the FIDE aid package or veteran program help. So for us, it's important, especially when we will discuss with you, to have this dashboard like ID card of funding, to understand the activity related directly to FIDE funds. So I think that's it for the brief introduction of some of the concepts we have in place. So let's go on with the funding cycle 2023. As I briefly mentioned, interactions with the federations, it's very important for us, of course, that you follow the processes which are defined to get the funding. So you will have to go through official documents, which we'll detail later. But this is not enough for us. I mean, that's what I call the paperwork. Of course, you need to follow the process and fill in the papers. That's a mandatory step, but it's much more interesting for us. And we think it will also help us improve the global development of chess if we have more personal interactions. So it's very important for us that you don't hesitate to contact us, either a counselor for your continent, or directly Kema as the secretary, or myself as the chair, or any member of the PDC if you have any questions, because we really wish to have a privileged relationship with you in terms of projects that you are going to lead, and how we can all together contribute to the development of chess. And of course, this is about relationship between the beneficiaries and FIDE PDC, but with your neighbor country, with your affiliated members when you are an organization like the French-speaking association, for instance. Speak with your colleagues. Maybe you will learn an interesting project from them, which you can replicate in your own context, and that would help also about the development in general. So, who is eligible for funding? As I mentioned, we have bits of paperwork. So one of the foundational layer for funding is that you have signed an agreement with FIDE. So this is a 4-year document valid for 4 years that the president of the federation or the affiliated association is signing together with FIDE. And without that document, you are not eligible at all to get the funding. So it's important that if you don't have this agreement signed, you get in touch with us to initiate this kind of agreements signature. Then we have, as mentioned on the map earlier, different levels of development. So there is distinction between level 3, 4, 5, which are expected to be the least developed levels, and levels 1 and 2. So 3, 4, 5 are automatically eligible for funding. 1 and 2 may get support as well, but there will be a few more checks before we actually grant some funding. And then finally, about, let's say, the year after year needs for compliance, you have to comply with the FIDE charter. So for instance, if a document is requested about your General Assembly minutes or any request from the FIDE office, you have to comply with that. Give your statutes, but okay, the statutes, I guess it's already one of the mandatory things to reach the agreement I mentioned earlier. But also, it's important that you are not in arrears. If the federation is in arrears, which means they have a debt which is lasting with FIDE, then this can block funding. There are some solutions. Of course, if federations fill in the gap and reimburse the debt, then it's okay. If they can't do it immediately in one shot, they can make an agreement with the FIDE treasurer and find a way to reimburse over time. So in this case, this reopens the eligibility. Of course, another thing which we will speak again later is about reporting on the funding you received previously. If you don't respect the reporting, this can also block you from receiving some funding. So about the funding calendar, as mentioned by Dana, we are a bit later than expected. The standard time frame is from the 1st of March to the 31st of October. So this is the usual plan for anyone. For commissions, FIDE commissions and continents, there is an extra step where we expect them to send to us their annual plan, which should, of course, comply with the priorities of the funding. And then when they have projects, according to the plan, they go one by one with their request for funding. So what is a little bit new is that we want now to have a follow-up on a project by project level, which means we want, and I will also go into details a bit later, we want to be able to advertise and follow up better project by project. So for federations who were used to send one request with 3 or 4 projects, sorry, we would expect later, starting in 2023, to send to us one Appendix B, which Kema will show us later, per project. This will make it easier to follow every pieces of development. So also one new thing, I'm not very proud that our website was not so much active recently, but this is something we want to change. And we wish that during the execution of your project, you send us some news, some pictures, some actual illustrations of what is being done with the FIDE development fund. And what is also changing to be closer to the execution of project, instead of having a reporting 1 month after the end of the year, we expect to have the final report on the project 1 month after the end of the project, which means that if your project is in April, we want the report in May, not in January in the next year. Okay, so those are a few things which we wanted to change to make our life easier and hopefully yours as well. We wanted to streamline the process, so that's one of the elements which took us a bit of time in the past months. And I would like to thank the PDC team, because they were really actively involved in making it more standardized and streamlined. So thanks to the team. We wanted to have common guidelines, as I will illustrate later, change the funding from USD to euros in federation funding. This was the only actor which was funded in dollars instead of euros compared to the other beneficiaries. And yeah, what I illustrated earlier about increased communication on funding actions is also something important. In the Appendix A, which is the document giving you the guidelines. So this Appendix A will be your reference, and this is actually what I'm speaking about at the moment. All those concepts, they are covered in Appendix A. We also introduced some kind of formal orientations, which I'll illustrate later. And this is very important for us, that step by step on the FIDE side as well, we are setting some global targets. And as mentioned by Dana earlier, every step by each of us is contributing to the global steps of FIDE and chess worldwide. So if we have like a common target, and each of the federations, they make one step in that direction, this will give us also more tangible results in that particular orientation. As mentioned by Dana too, we changed the approach on KPIs, and this will be more illustrated by Kema a bit later. And finally, another thing, this is not the nicest thing to speak about, but when you don't respect the contract about reporting or things like that, or you don't do what was actually planned, this is not compliant with the deal we have together. So we also better document it and clarify what happens in case of non-compliance. So yeah, this one is just to remind each actors about the different levels of funding. So national chess federations, as I said, we moved from USD to euros, so that now you can see in this table, everybody is in euros. It's easier for the reporting in general. So the indicative amounts of funding are 5,000 per federation, 100,000 per continent, 20,000 euro for FIDE affiliated organization or FIDE zones. The FIDE zones, this is a new actor which is included as such. Previously, they were not directly funded, so this is also another step that we are bringing to contribute to development. For those two actors, affiliated organizations and zones, the amount is also compared to their global budget or to the budget of the action which is expected to be supported. Okay, so this is the picture of how we were working until now. We had like a sorry, we had like a vertical approach. Documents were duplicated in different contexts, and the exercise I mentioned earlier about streamlining the process is now that, for instance, for the guidelines, the Appendix A is bigger than the previous one. If I remember well, the size of the Appendix A in the past was something like 4 pages or 5 pages, and now it's rather close to 10. But we also tried to seek inspiration from the outside. We were advised to have a look at the IOC document. They have similar processes as ours, and we consider that they have also a longer experience than us. So we took their document and adapted it to the FIDE context, and we did the same about the reporting part for Appendix D. So this is what we call the kind of more integrated approach, and we expect it to be also easier to follow for every actor. So now about on another change that we brought about what was supported. It was a kind of mix of what projects we support and what cost we support. So we made now a clear split between the types of projects that we support. So you will have to determine for your project whether it's hosting an event, your national chess championship, or an IM norm tournament or something, or whether it's sending players in a continental championship. Talent training, of course, speaks on its own. Chess capacity building is among the important things which are funded, for instance, for arbiters, trainers, organizers, seminars, and things like that. And of course, we also wish to help when we speak about development. Of course, chess capacity building is about the game, but we also need to improve the strengths of federation leaders about their abilities to have a strategic plan and things like that. So this is another important topic. I won't read all of the topics in details. You will find them in the document. And what is interesting to note is we gave a list also of things which are covered. Like, of course, if you're organizing a seminar, it makes sense to cover the payment of the lecturers, or if you are a baby country, sorry to say it this way, but I mean, let's say a federation which was just created and you don't have material or things like that, then it makes sense also maybe to acquire some chess material. But for instance, as we speak about material, there are some kinds of things that we consider that they are not part of development. Like if you buy a computer for your office, it should be like the standard cost of a federation. So there are things which are not covered by the fund or not accepted. So two important ones, like double expenses. If we have a project in a federation, so for instance a training seminar, and the federation asked for the fund directly to FIDE and also asked for support for the continent, this is not okay, because basically we are giving also the money to the continent, and would be indirectly the same money twice for the same project. Also, cascading funds. This is something which is to be avoided, that every entity should fund projects of its own level. A federation is entitled to ask for budget to FIDE, so they deal with their own level federation. The continent for continent, the zone for zone, affiliated organization for affiliated organization level. So this one, I just put it as an illustration that in Appendix A, you will find in more detail which area is covered for which kind of actor. So this is just a bit more detailed in terms of communicating. I already introduced this topic a bit earlier. So what is important is that when you receive funding from the FIDE Development Fund, it is clearly advertised. So when you make a promotion of the event or something, you will add a mention that the project is supported by the FIDE Development Fund. Also, it's important that you put the official FIDE logo in your visuals. That is clear that the project is supported by the fund. And as mentioned earlier, it's also very important for us to give visibility to your projects. So when you announce the project, don't forget to include us in your announcements. When you follow with some news, with some social media post or something during the event, also don't forget us. We can relay them and post them in the PDC website. So another topic I mentioned earlier is about the orientations. So in Appendix A, you will find one paragraph which shows orientations. So one of the important one is about women. So last year was the year of women in chess. And in terms of visibility of women, of participation in important events, we consider it's very important if we can reach in the next Olympiad one woman national team for each federation. So in particular, if a federation did not have a women's team in Chennai, this could be one of the priority to prepare the next Olympiad and make sure they have a team in 2024 in Budapest. Another important orientation is about tournaments. So some of the federations, they don't run FIDE-rated events. So federations from level 3, 4, 5 with no rated events should have this as a priority, to have the possibility for their players to play rated games. And of course, if we raise at the higher level, federations who don't have IM or GM norms tournaments, from level 2 or 3, they are encouraged to propose some projects to have the possibility for their players to achieve international norms. And finally, another sector which is very important is educational chess. So the global objective for FIDE is to double the number of kids engaged in educational chess. So about KPIs, again, Ekema will illustrate it with real information, but the concept we wanted to put in place is that we consider it's very important that we can measure what's going on in chess. So it's important that we have data which is useful for us to understand where a federation is, and it's also useful for you to understand where you are, and to make it accessible for you so that you can understand how many rated players you have, how many title players, and so on. And you can then put your own, set your own targets for your projects to continue growing your your population. So of course, some of the data, it's already available in the FIDE database. So those things, we expect them to be automated. In the past, you had this full page of indicators, which was mixing things that are stored in the FIDE database and other things which you only can provide from your own, because we don't store them in the FIDE database. Now we are making the difference between what is automated, so provided by FIDE, you don't need to care about it, you will get it automatically. And on the other hand, the ones which I call collected KPIs, so those ones, you will need to provide them every year through the annual questionnaire that you receive from the FIDE office. That's our way to progress on this one. So that's about the observation of the KPIs, but about your target as well. In the Appendix B, which we will see later, you will have to focus your targets project by project. That was one of the most asked question from the past. Do we need to fill in the Appendix C only for the project or for the whole year for our federation? So yeah, now it's more clear, it's project by project. So visually speaking, we started something. Of course, we are also progressing step by step, so we don't have the full set of KPIs, but we wanted already to have a first step. So this is part of the indicators that are automatically extracted from the FIDE database. Kema will show you later. So now we reach the part which I said is not so nice, when we fail to comply with the funding processes requirements. So there are mainly two kinds of failure which are documented in Appendix A. So if you are late with reporting, so we said reporting should be within 1 month. So this will block you for the next application until you provided the reporting from the previous period. So depending on the level of delay, if you're only a few days later, it's different from being 3 months late. 3 months later. So if you have significant delay, it can be that we say, okay, you were too late last time. We had to ask you 5 times before we received the report. So for the next time, you are not blocked for an application, but we won't pay in advance, for instance. And if it's really like every time we have to ask for the report and it's not provided on time, then you might even be banned for the next cycle. And yeah, that's one thing we discussed in our last meeting. We introduced a monthly meeting with the team, and yeah, one of our members said, yeah, we should put something which is more looking like an incentive than like a sanction. And I really agree with this approach. So we will think about it. But for now, we have this way. So please make sure that you report on time, because it's never comfortable to have to sanction organization. So in case you deviate from the initial plan, yeah, we had COVID as an example, which had a big impact on many projects. Of course, anything can happen that impacts a plan. And we need to understand how we can adapt a plan. So if it's like you have a problem with renting a hall and you can only organize the next week compared to the initial plan, this is not a big deal. But if you have a significant change, that's important that you come to us and that we agree that this change is acceptable, or we need to adapt the project or postpone to the next year or things like that. It's very important that we agree together on what we do when there is a significant change. If you do something totally different with the money from what was initially planned without telling us, then the consequence could be that we ask you to reimburse the the payment, or that you have to do the project on the next year or something like that. So please, in case of changes, get in touch with us. We are here for that, to listen, to adapt, but we don't like surprises in a way. And finally, I would like to give you final tips before you prepare an application. As you know, PDC stands for Planning and Development Commission. So what's very important for us is that you have this planning mindset. That's your project is not something you just thought about during the night, and then the next day you come with a request. Okay, it can happen if this is really a brilliant idea and you are at the very beginning of your process. But if you think planning, take into account where you would like to be in a few years, and what are the different steps that you need to follow to reach this view in several years. And then you would have an idea of the project. Okay, this year I want this project, which will, for instance, allow me to have 5 clubs in my federation, because I'm a very young federation. And then another step is to have the nation championship, and so on and so on. And also, in terms of planning, please don't wait for the last minute. If we consider that this is part of a plan, the application that you make, even if the project is in June or July, apply at the start. Then you don't get delayed with funding or things like that. And we understand in advance what projects are coming during the year. About developments, again, we gave some orientations, but you are the ones who know where you are and how you would act in the most beneficial way for your federation, for the growth of the federation. So make meaningful projects for the biggest benefit for chess in general. Of course, we mentioned the KPIs earlier. It's important for you to follow them, and even rather than only following them, make the actions, plan the projects that will help you to have a significant impact on this or that KPI. And of course, as we said since the introduction of this meeting, the steps of each of you, or of each of us, all together, even if each of us have like a quite small step, when we accumulate them over 200 chess federations, continents, and so on, this will make a significant growth worldwide. So that's it about the general introduction about the concepts, the funding calendar, and so on. And now I would like to invite Kema to present us the forms.
Hello, everyone, again. Very happy to see all of you at our webinar. So let's come to the practical things, how to send us the document, how to start the process of funding, what to start with. Probably you all know about our PDC website, which is pdcfide.com. Let me share the screen. You see the screen all okay? So if you go to pdcfide.com, among the menus, you will see request for funding menu with all listed appendixes, all those documents that you need to either thoroughly read, because these are guidelines or informative document. I will tell you a little bit briefly about each of them. For instance, Appendix A, that is what Laurent was introducing you now, the guidelines of the FIDE Development Fund. Then you have the main document that you need to fill in when provide the funding request is Appendix B, Funding Request Form. Funding Request Form, Appendix B, goes for national federations, affiliated organizations, and FIDE zones. We have another Appendix B, which is called drawdown request form, but this form should be filled in and sent to us by continents and FIDE commissions. There, the process is a little bit different. We require another document from those beneficiaries, and since there are only 4 continents and less than 20 FIDE commissions, we will have another meeting with them. That's what Laurent was telling, that we need to cooperate more. But now I would like to go through Appendix B for federations, affiliated organizations, and FIDE zones. So Appendix B, the main document and the only document that you need to fill in and to provide to fedfunding@fide.com, consists of several parts. The first one is an introduction of you as a beneficiary and the project. It's clearly written here what we require, line by line. We need to know, of course, the contact email and WhatsApp of the phone of the main organizer or the main contact for us to get in touch with you later. We need project name. We need start and end date of the project from you. A small description of the project, not long, 1 to 2 sentences. The main description, that I don't think it will be any problem. The project objectives also. So the objectives of the project, what would you like to see as your goal when organizing the project? Up to 4 points here. The mandatory also, one of the mandatory fields is expected number of participants. Another mandatory thing is project website, the main website that you're going to have your project on, or cover your project, or put the results. We require that you put here the main website. The project expected outcomes and deliverables. So here also up to 4 main, let's say, global in scope of your project outcomes and deliverables that you plan to achieve and you set as your goal after the project finishes. Project total budget. Here I would like to spend a little bit more time. You know the amount that FIDE allocates as a development fund to each beneficiary, but the practice shows, and what we really want to achieve is that any project, any tournament, any seminar or workshop or any other activity that you are planning to organize is done not only with FIDE Development Fund. That would be great, and that's what we really want, that other sponsors and partners join you and contributing into the project. So here we require, we ask you to give the full budget for us to have better understanding of the project in full and how much FIDE contributes in it. Okay. And of course, down the funding amount that you're requesting from FIDE. The second part of Appendix B is the project priority areas that Laurent mentioned in his presentation. We listed all priority areas for your convenience here, and we ask you just to tick the relevant priority area, whether it's hosting event. If this is for women, then you click women as well. It might be also just capacity building inside the project. But yeah, it's I think it's very clear. So we're asking you to tick off the relevant priority area. The third part is covered expenses. Laurent mentioned also the covered expenses that FIDE Development Fund is, let's say, eligible to cover. So we listed the covered expenses for your convenience as well. When planning the project, and planning how to spend the funds, we recommend and we advise, actually, I was thinking, we were making this simulation and this sample of the project yesterday, and we find it very convenient, let's say, if in advance, when you plan the project, you put the amount for each expense out of the FIDE development fund, let's say, and you probably can split the expense according to what you plan to. For instance, organizational cost can be rent of the hall, I don't know, rent of the chessboards. So if you split like that and you already plan the amount you are planning to spend on each of the costs, it will make your life easier when filling in the financial report. So here we're asking you to put the amounts from FIDE development fund. The second column you see if the applicant's own funding, which means that if your federation or affiliated organization or zone have your own funding and you're planning to spend for this or that expense, please put the amount here. If you have sponsors or partners who contribute as well, please put the amount here in the third column. You see here the gray line, which is called other expenses not covered but by FIDE development fund. What is that? We understand that organizing any chess activity might not be only within those covered expenses, right? There might be something else, and you spend money from the third party, let's say, out somewhere not from the development FIDE funding. So we're asking you as well to list here all those expenses that you're planning to do. As you see in the column of the FIDE development fund, we put X, which means that the money does not come from this source, but we left the second and third column for you to put the amounts. So here you need to calculate the total amount. Also, we're asking to calculate the percentage of development fund in the total budget for us to see how good we are, how we do our efforts to invite sponsors, and what is the contribution of FIDE. We recommend, and we actually would like to transfer the amount to the applicant, to the beneficiary, but in some cases, exceptional cases, if you request some of the amounts to be sent to the third party, please indicate the amount here, and in brackets you can actually put the reason why. There might be some reasons that you ask us to do so. Key performance indicators, the fourth part of the appendix. As Laurent mentioned, we're trying to automate for you all those KPIs that can be relative when we speak about the development and follow-ons of the development, let's say, thanks to the project. They are automated, but the first elements are there. I will show you now, and we're working on increasing, on making it bigger. So I'm coming back to the PDC website, and one of the menus here you see KPIs. When you click on this menu, you will see here the key performance indicators informative document, first of all. Yeah, this is what KPI is, why we require it, and if you click to visualize and download, sorry for my internet. So you see this table that Laurent already showed to you. Yeah, so it's here in menu KPIs, visualize and download. You can see the menus here, year, continent, zone, federation, and development level. if you talk about the federation, you can click on the federation. You just empty all the boxes and you find your federation. Okay, let it be Azerbaijan, let's say. And here you go. You have baseline KPIs. Active players, number of active women players, number of tournaments, etc. So the map is also very interesting to play with. If you just empty the federation list, and you can find your country here, and you click, and here you go. So I'm coming back to Appendix B. So the table here is very easy to use. We have drop-down menu, and all the relevant, almost all relevant KPIs are here. You choose according to your project, up to 4 KPIs. You put the baseline where I showed you where you can find the baseline. You put your target. This is mandatory field, and up to 4 KPIs we're requesting you to fill in. The 5th part of the Appendix B is project outcomes and deliverables. You know that development is something that we really want to see, yeah? So the visuality and the dissemination is very important after each of the project. It's very clear here. We're asking you just to put all the sources that you're planning to use when you organize your project or activity and how you're going to cover it. Official website, other social media, if you're sending results somewhere, photos somewhere, if you invite local newspapers and magazines, or you cooperate with some influencers and bloggers, even if on radio, on the local radio or national radio, you're planning to do some shows about the project, we're asking you to put them here. Sponsors involved in each of the project. You list the sponsors that you plan to involve and to invite. We need some information about the contact, the official website, and how you're going to involve them. And also, not less important, that we're seeking for other partnership than sponsors. It could be governmental, administrative bodies, UNESCO, national ministries, national Olympic committees. So if you are in plan to have them as your partners, please list them with contact details, contact website, and how you're going to involve in the project. And the 6th part is a simple part. You put here the bank details of your body or of a federation or affiliated organization. And as I said before, if in an exceptional cases you need FIDE to transfer some amount of money to the third party, we ask you to list here the third party name and the third party bank details. So this was Appendix B for federations, affiliated, and zones. It's easy. We tried actually to make it as easy as possible. Laurent mentioned as well that in those interim reports, let's say media reports that were requiring you to send us once you have a budget approved, right before the project and after the project. Okay, and now let me come to the final financial report, which is Appendix D, and which is also here in the submenu. Appendix D consists of 2 parts. The content part in the Word document, easy to fill in for you, and financial part in Excel. Let me start with the Word document. This is the Word document. The first part is, as I said, introduction as you as a beneficiary and introduction of a project. Easy, you copy paste from Appendix B. Key performance indicators. Also, you have already planned some target of the KPIs with baseline from the place I have shown you on PDC website. So here you just need to put the actual KPIs after the project. Project outcomes deliverables, also already filled in by you in Appendix B. Here we're asking you to put actual, what happened in reality. Sponsors and strategical partners, if you planned successfully and all those sponsors and partners whom you were seeking to involve were till the end of the project with you, just put them here. The fourth part, we're asking links, photos, and supporting media documents. Please don't send more than 3-4 photos in this document. Please choose some main photos to be included here in this box. And mainly we're asking you to list the links, to give us the links of the coverage of your official website, some other websites where your project was presented. The attachment to it, and here the attachment of to the report, the financial report, which is Excel file, I will show you a little bit later, and photos. If you see it necessary to send us more photos and videos, please zip them and send as an attachment. And other supporting documents. The Appendix D should be signed by the President of the Federation affiliated of FIDE zone and stamped, if you can stamp it in a Word document. Let me ask you to send the Appendix D, the first part, either in Word document or PDF. No JPG will be accepted. No JPEG files, only Word and better PDF, okay? Then second part of Appendix D is financial report itself. The same introduction of the project at the beginning. And here we're asking you to list all your expenses. Remember when we were talking about Appendix B and this covered expenses, I was advising you that when you plan the project, you already, if you put organizational cost, let's say 1,500, and under it you split them to some sub expenses, let's say, it will help you to easily fill in this financial report. You make the name of the expenses from here bold, yeah, and put it here, and then split expenses for us also for better understanding. You may put the expense in your local currency by choosing currency here, then the amount, and then please transfer the amount to euros, to the official currency of FIDE funding. Here is the total in euros. Here's the president's signature, treasurer's signature, date, his name and stamp, place and date. So this is basically it. So just to summarize, when sending the request, there is only Appendix B to fill in and to present. And when providing the financial report, there are two parts of Appendix D, content and financial report. Thank you so much, dear colleagues. Laurent.
Thanks a lot, Kema. Yeah, while you were presenting, I was thinking, of course, we are focusing now on one practical process, but we have a project to build in the future what we are calling a federation relationship management. So you could think, there are things which we have to copy paste from one document to the next. I admit this is not the most interesting activity to make some copy paste, but for now, this is the way we will do. Our ambition in medium term is to create a part of our website which will be dedicated to that. So of course, when we post on the website such things, then it's much easier to ask the computer to make the copy paste for us. But for the short term, we still have to do it this way. So what we wanted to do is also to make it illustrated through an example. So basically, I will just go through a project. I'm from National Chess Federation of Chessland, and we are proposing a project for chess for pupils. And this is, as I mentioned earlier, it's good to have plans over several years. So this is a project for 3-4 years to get into schools in our country. We are a federation of development level 3. And this will be year 1 will start in April until the end of the year. So what's the context? In our country, there are 1,000 schools, and the country is split in 6 different administrative regions, and that represents approximately 120,000 children from 5 to 11-year-old. So in the next 4 years, we expect to reach 10% of schools and approximately 12,000 kids. So the project objectives are the following. One of the things is that we want that every family in the country who have a kid from 5 to 11, they hear about chess. The second objective is, of course, to have people capable to teach kids at school. So we will train some school teachers. And for this first year, the objective is, of course, 10% would be a bit too aggressive. So we want to engage 1%, which is 10 schools for the first year. And in year 3, when we have more regions covered, then we want to organize our first school championship. So for this year, we expect to have 2 teachers per school, so 20 teachers and 500 pupils covered. The official website, we have not yet thought about a dedicated website, so we will use our Chess Federation website and publish regular news about the project. And what we are going to deliver through the project. So about this first objective that everybody hears about chess, we will distribute in schools carton chess sets because they are much cheaper than real chess sets, but this is about spreading about chess. So carton chess sets with the rules to each pupil, even if they are not among the 500. We will deliver a train the trainer program for teachers. We want, through those 10 schools, to give visibility to the Ministry of Education. And finally, when we reach in year 3, so this part is a bit of extrapolation, of course, because we are only covering year 1 in this Appendix B, but about this next step, we will also have the capability to find the qualifiers for the Continental World School Championships. So the overall budget for this year is 16,400 euros, and we ask for the maximum for one federation to FIDE, 5,000 euros. About what I just explained, we want to have some teachers, so they belong to this chess capacity building. Lifelong learning, this is the way we include the Chess in Schools project. And of course, I didn't mention a few elements of the project in this top part. We want also to advertise what's going on. So there will be, at the end of the year, there will be one day in the National Science Museum where the national champion will make a simultaneous display with the kids from those schools. So about the covered expenses, here you have the final split, but I will move now to this other document which Kema showed to us. And I kind of deviated from this document. You see the one which is downloadable is the one called final report here. I just made a kind of copy paste of it, and I put here all my different ideas of of elements to be covered by this project. So for instance, okay, we have project management, and we said, okay, this one will be paid by the federation, 500 euros. We want to have a lecturer to teach the teachers. So we will have to make him travel and to give the lectures during 3 days. So those we would take from the FIDE development fund. We want to welcome those 20 teachers from the schools, and we have to accommodate them. We also want to rent a classroom. So this will be covered directly with the funds from the federation. And then when they are trained, we will also pay them for the lessons they give to the kids in the school. So this is split 50% on the FIDE development fund, and we are lucky in our country that we have an educational foundation, and they are happy to sponsor projects which are contributing to the education of kids. So they will pay the other 50% of training of kids. And also they will support the equipment of the schools. Each of the schools will receive one wall chessboard, 10 sets and 5 clocks. And finally, we want, of course, as we mentioned during the training today, that's when some events are organized that we have promotion and things like that. So we will have banners with the logo of the federation, of the sponsors, and of FIDE. And we will take family pictures and things like that when we organize some lessons. And at the end of the year, as I mentioned, we will have this science museum visit for the kids, plus the simultaneous display with the national chess champions. So this is the National Science Museum, which is sponsoring this part. Also, we want to to leave a little souvenir to all those 500 participants. So you see, it's quite a symbolic thing, like 500 euros for one little souvenir marked with the project and FIDE logo and everything. So we ask it from FIDE as well. And finally, about spreading the visibility on chess on those 5 to 11-year-old kids, we want to print 20,000 carton chess sets and distribute them in the whole region schools for the first region in the scope of the project for year 1. So when we have made this exercise, then it's much easier to put in the good square which part of the funding is supported by whom. So organization cost, we had 750, then lecturing fees. This mixes training the trainers plus then training the kids. And once it's the lecturer, the other part is about the teachers themselves. And as you see, this is split between other sources of funding and FIDE development fund, and so on. So at the end, when we sum everything up, we have 5,000 from the development fund, which is the maximum which a federation can request. Then 2,400 from the own Chessland Chess Federation. And then other sponsors, 9,000. So when we compare, this is approximately 30%, which is taken from the FIDE Development Fund. And this is very good for FIDE, because it means the National Federation not only relies on 100% funding from the Development Fund, but could also find other sources of financing. And we consider it as a kind of win-win situation, that we help funding at the start, but you make some meaningful projects which give you positive visibility on some local partners, and then they are happy to support you, and step by step you get more and more support. And in this case, the National Chess Federation will get the whole 5,000, and they will pay the invoices which correspond to the needs of the project. So about key performance indicator, we are in a brand new project. So at the moment in Chessland, no school is registered to teach chess. So the baseline, number of schools teaching chess, this is the first indicator that we selected. At the moment, we have no school at all, 0. But at the end of the year, we expect to have 10. And then this, if you were curious and you already had a look at the document, this one is not in the list of KPIs. This is not a problem. I mean, you can put your own KPI, which is meaningful for the project. If it's not only meaningful for the project, but it makes sense to have it followed in a larger scale, we will update the list of KPIs and ask to follow it for the future. As I said earlier, we are also building the way, and so we are also learning from your projects and step by step making it more complete what we wish to follow. So again, this number of teachers involved in chess teaching, we had none, we want 20. And number of pupils learning chess at school, 0 to 500. So that's at the beginning of the year. We submitted today. I think I put the date of today. And that's our view right now. So what do we plan to have? Okay, we said our national official website, we will use the National Chess Federation. Then we also have at the National Chess Federation, Twitter and Facebook. And what is nice is that we have a WhatsApp group with our members. So for internal advertisement, we will also post sometimes on the WhatsApp group. But for visibility to the whole world, we will use the other 3 channels. Then locally speaking, we have in this Western region where we are doing this first year, we have the West Chessland posts. And we also have contacts with the education magazine for Chessland, and we will get in touch with them to have some articles. YouTube and streams, we don't have any plans. It's quite not practical for this kind of project, so we did not intend to have anything with this kind of media. But in Western radio, they often have with big projects like this the possibilities to have interviews or regular meeting with the project leaders. So we will try to do something with the radio as well. Blogs, they will depend on individual contributions. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, we want through the official banner to take pictures with every of the classes which are involved and recognize the wide involvement in region number 1. So in terms of sponsors, as mentioned, we will not only have funding from the FIDE Development Fund, we found external sponsors. So the Chessland National Newspaper, they will print for us the carton chess sets and they will donate the banners. The Chessland Educational Foundation, I already spoke about their coverage during the evaluation of the budget. And finally, the National Science Museum, they will give free entry for those 500 kids on that special day and simultaneous display with the national champion. And finally, at the start of the project, we don't have a formal agreement with the Ministry of Education, but each school is happy to welcome us for those 10 schools we targeted. And we want to make it a success story, and that at the end of the process, we then go back to the Ministry of Education and ask for their formal support. So they are, let's say, potential partner for the next steps of the cycle. So this is what we do at the start of the process. So as said, only the whole money will reach the federation. So I ticked this one. I don't need to send money to a third party. And I put my bank details there. Not my own, of course, the ones from the federation. And then we are reaching the end of the year. So as mentioned by Kema, the start we can kind of copy paste. And then we will have a look at the actuals. So what happens? At the end of the year, we managed to reach 10 schools. That was fine. In terms of teachers, we did not manage to have 20 teachers interested, but some of them, they took 2 classes and then it went fine as well. We reached 18. And there was not exactly 25 kids in each classroom. There were a bit less on average, so we reached 488. So this actually is pretty good compared to the initial one. So we are happy with the success of the project. About what we intended to do, I put in blue what we actually reached from this Appendix B. So in Appendix B, we said we would use the National Chess Federation website, but actually we had one of our members who was really keen on creating a dedicated website. So we said, go, let's have this chess for pupils .chessland. And then on the social media, we covered with 50 tweets, 100 Facebook posts, and so on. In media, okay, we didn't push to make some fake articles to join to the report, but the idea is that if you have some PDF articles or anything that you wish to join, or links on your website, you could bring the links to corresponding to those ones. But we managed to have 5 articles in the newspaper, 1 article in the National Education magazine from the Ministry of Education, and so on. In radio, we had 1 week of presence every morning. The project leader was interviewed with the Western radio, so this gave visibility locally speaking. And we introduced a hashtag for the project, for the Twitter and so on social media. And of course, we did what we said we would do. We had those banners and 20 pictures with each of the 20 classes. And that was a well-run project. We had good connection with the sponsors, and they were committed to the thing, and whatever they said they would cover, they did. So everything was done. And as this was a successful project, we indeed have for the first quarter of 2024, a meeting with the Ministry of Education to sign an official partnership this time. So that's where you can put the links and pictures, and maybe you can also add if you have some lessons learned from the project. This is also interesting for us to learn about these things, because the objective of those projects, of course, they are that you grow in your federation, but it can also be interesting in some cases to replicate what we do when we make the final review of reports with the counselors in the team. We ask them to identify if there are some projects which can be candidates for replication, and then we can go to you and ask you if you accept to make a presentation of your project, so that other federations or organizations can benefit from the same model in the future. So if you go back to the final reports, in this case, you put the actuals. If you remember, I had put the 750 for the travel and accommodation. This was a bit more expensive at the end. And on the right, okay, this is not an official column, but this can be interesting for you to put this information. Here I listed what kind of official document is supporting the expense. So for the project manager, I have an invoice from the project manager. For the travel of the lecturer, I have an e-ticket plus the hotel invoice. For his lecturing fees, he provided his own invoice. For accommodation, this one was more expensive. This one we obtained a little discount from the hotel, so it's a bit less expensive than in the initial budget. We managed to have for free the classroom rental at the hotel and things like that. Okay, so what is important here is that you highlight which ones are covered by the FIDE Development Fund or not. What I did here for those which were split among what was paid by the sponsor, so by the educational foundation, and also paid by FIDE, I just split the row, which was half covered by FIDE, which is the yes here, and half not covered by FIDE, paid by the foundation. Okay, so here we easily see which rows are taken from the development fund and which rows are not. And yeah, that's very good if you have an easy reference to that, because okay, we did not necessarily ask to attach. You may attach them directly, it's then easier, but if you don't, we may ask you to provide some invoices and yeah, proof of payment of how the money was spent for the project. Okay, so at the end we were a bit lower than initially planned. We said 16,400 and we reached, by optimizing a few things, 15,700. Okay, so finally, when it's all finished, we sign and we send it to fedfunding@fide.com. So I hope that this one that we created yesterday with Kema gave you an interesting illustration on what kind of projects could be proposed. Oh, of course, you may not copy paste the project, but at least how, based on the activities that we had in mind, how we translated them into the official documents. So that's it about what we plan to cover today. Of course, as said at the start of the meeting, we are happy to be in touch in order to help you prepare these applications if needed.